So the Gemara tells us in Pesachim, Shloshim Yom Kodem Hachag, 30 days before Pesach, before the Yantiv, you start learning Hilchas Chag, you start learning about the laws of Yantiv. So it's a good chance to discuss them in Yoni Pesach. So this year, the first night of Pesach is also Leil Shabbos. So we have a little different kiddush we have to add on in Yoni Shabbos. And one of the questions discussed, so kiddush it always happens every year. Kiddush Leil Pesach is always the first of the 4 cups. So I'm often asked, what's the preferable drink? Is it better to use grape juice or wine? Again, all things being equal, wine. We'll see if you enjoy wine the same way you do grape juice, and I think everyone will be in agreement then one should use wine. So I'm assuming when I get the question about grape juice is they don't like wine or they prefer grape juice over wine. So is there any issue of using grape juice for the 4 cups on the Leil Pesach? So before we answer that question, you have to ask a more fundamental question. What about using grape juice all year round? What about Friday night, every Shabbos, every Yantiv? Are we permitted to use grape juice in lieu of wine? So actually there are different issues that come up. There's a Hilchas Brachas issue, perhaps, because the halacha is that obviously, and you have it in the text, Boei Pri Hagafen. So one of the things you're supposed to use for Kiddush is something which constitutes the blessing of Boei Pri Hagafen. But they made b'diavad you make a shahako in general on wine yotze, whether you need to text to the Kiddush Boei Pri Hagafen, or certainly lechatchila, perhaps b'diavad. But either way, so the question is, what bracha do you make on grape juice? So if grape juice is Boei Pri Hagafen, then we can move on to our next issue. It won't be a Hilchas Bracha Shaila. Why wouldn't it be a Boei, or why would it be? So the Gemara in Brachas talks about, let's say someone is cooking a vegetable or a fruit. You're making soup, you're making fruit juice. So what happens to the bracha? So the Gemara has different rules. It depends on if by cooking this object you're making it better or worse. Again, that could be a subjective thing as well, whether it goes down in level or higher. So if whatever going down means, if it's considered like it's a lower level status now, then instead of making a Boei Pri Hadam or a Boei Pri Eitz, the Gemara says you make a shahako. So Rashi writes over there in case of Mevarchim, the 6th parak in Brachas, if one is making the grape juice, it lowers the status from grapes, and the bracha is shahakol niyeh bidvaro. So clearly, according to Rashi, it'd be a little problematic to use grape juice on Kiddush because it's not Boei Pri Hagafen. And in fact, even though today most people assume that you make a Boei Pri Hagafen in grape juice. That is accepted today. However, it wasn't always that way. In fact, Reb Henkin, who was basically the Gadol Hador before Rav Moshe Feinstein, he lived in New York City, and he came out very strongly. He felt grape juice was shahako. And in fact, I hear that was one of the big issues, not big issues, but it was one of the issues separating orthodoxy from conservative. Now we have much bigger. If that was the biggest issue today, we'd be in good shape. But during, I guess it must have been the 50s, 60s, that conservatives, and I'll get into who in a second, they said you can make a Boei Pri Hagafen on grape juice, and Rav Henkin and others during that day all said no, it's a shahako, and you can't make a Boei Pri Hagafen, you can't use it for Kiddush. And in fact, the first one to come out with the psak of Boei Pri Hagafen on Kiddush, on grape juice, there's this rabbi in New Haven, I think Rav Horowitz, who was a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim. He wrote a whole sefer, and one of his chapters, one of his side points, he doesn't mention him by name. He calls him the Rosh HaKaram, like the head of the Karaites, what he's talking about. But Karam with Kuf Reish Ayin, the people who are ripping apart Judaism. And he says, these people say it's Voyer Pri Agafen, they don't know what they're talking about, it's Shahako, and you cannot use grape juice for kids. And that was the accepted psak among Orthodox Jews for many years, until none other than Rav Moshe Feinstein. He was the first major Orthodox posek to come out and say no, that wine, grape juice is, but that's why we're all brought up, like, what do you mean, unless you know the subject, like, what do you mean, like, of course you make Boer Pri Agafen on grape juice. Rav Moshe Feinstein was the first one to come out. In fact, interesting, and one of Rav Moshe died, I think it was Tainus Esther, maybe that was the funeral, one of the two, right around it, but I think the funeral was on Tainus Esther, the day before Purim. And remember, there's a whole discussion in the yeshiva, should we sell it, should we tone down the parties because of the night of Purim or not? I guess different yeshivas went different ways. So in one of the Hespedim, they were trying to show how far-reaching Rav Moshe's psak was. Even the Goyim followed Rav Moshe. I think this guy quoted, there was this judge in Philadelphia, there was a Siamese twin case, I forget all the details, but he quoted, and Rav Moshe Feinstein, this great rabbi in New York, paskin this quick, and that's the way I'm following. I'm following this great rabbi. And the thing Rav Moshe Tenler used to say over that, you know how far it went, that there was an issue with communion. I think is that what they call it when they have the wafers, and when the Catholics they have like the wafers and the wine. There's a big tumult. What's this? Alcoholic, this and that. Can we use grape juice for our communion? In fact, I thought it was funny because on this Sunday I spoke to a minister. I said, you know why you can use grape juice for some so what happened was they went to the Pope, and the Pope said, this great rabbi Moshe Feinstein said grape juice is like wine. If it's good enough for Rav Moshe, it's good enough for us.
Is that a true story?
Well, you'll have to confer with Rav Moshe Tenler. Whether it's true or not, it's a good story anyway.
Rabbi, in the 50s, I wasn't around, but my understanding is that the modification of foods was less prevalent than it is today. So when you're telling me it could be borei shako instead of borei agafen, actually makes total sense today, because some of it is reconstituted grape juice, in that it never really comes from grapes.
Excellent point. That's something else. What he's talking about, that the Post can talk about that. It's not just any juice. Because during let's say you couldn't get, let's say you had grapes in California, or we have them in Niagara, I think. But the grapes, so how do you get them to you squeeze out the water and then they reconstitute and make them again. So that's the further discussion. Most assume that grape juice is a shahako. You're right.
So, but all grape juice, you squish it out.
No.
Or
So
you concentrate it.
Yeah, but I'm saying but that they point out that most agree that type of grape juice would be a shahako. Even those who would say you make a Pri Agafen on real grape juice would agree to your point. It's 100% true.
So in today, what would you identify as a grape juice that you can only do shako on?
That's all I'll get to shortly, and we'll discuss it in a minute. So that's what. So Rav Henkin was very strong, and that was the psak of Orthodox Jewry. No one used grape juice, and they used wine. And the posting of the JTS, that's who referred to Rosh HaKaram, was Louis Ginsburg.
And Ann Lerner, who's the cousin of Rabbi Green.
Who is?
Ann Lerner is now the head of the JTS, who's cousins of Rabbi Green.
So Louis Ginsburg, you know where it came up? Because I'll tell you where they ought to, because during those days, you're not allowed to use, alcohol was prohibited. The only heter to use alcohol was for religious reasons. So all the rabbis said, we need it for Kiddush, Havdalah, 4 cups. And then Louis Ginsburg came in and said, no, it's not true. He was Moser, he said, they don't need wine, you can use grape juice. That's where the big tumult started, and that's where Rapar was right. He's saying it's not true, but that's where he brought it up. So there definitely are halachic issues regarding whether you make a shahako of Bor Agafen, but in addition, perhaps there could have been a meta halacha principle working, not today, but during those days when the conservative movement was totally different. You had many Talmidei Chachamim on Soalim, you had a whole bunch of Talmud and Schechter, and therefore it wasn't what it is today. And therefore, that by itself, the fact that the conservative movement said grape juice that might have been enough for some, even though in halacha they could have found reason to agree with them, because obviously today we do make a lawyer for Yagabin. So there are halachic issues, but perhaps I'm making this up on my own, that perhaps a meta halacha factor was because they came out and said Bor Agafen, we're specifically not going to do it. We want to distance ourselves, which has value in its own right. You want to distance yourself from different things. So either way, so there's a hilchos brachas issue. So that's part of the question. What do you mean great? Let's say that Sarah, you're familiar with Ceres, Ceres from South Africa, wherever it is.
South Africa.
That I can't afford even to look at it, but they have some grape juice. So the question is, could you make kiddush over that grape juice? So that was a question I got must have came about a year ago or around there. Someone, and maybe it wasn't even Ceres. There was another grape juice. It wasn't Kedem. Basically, it was a type of something like Ceres. It was, I forget the name, but didn't say on the bottle kosher for kiddush. And in fact, I know someone who had family living out in the middle. They were in medical somewhere in Mexico. I don't know where they were, and there was an issue of getting kosher wine. So they asked me, could we take this? Could we take? They said they asked someone and whatever, and they said no, you can't use it. But you had no idea, but I don't know if the guy was made. So what's the issue? Whether you could use something like Ceres or not. I don't know. I haven't got a black and white answer whether Ceres is good or not. The question, in other words, you can't really bring a proof the fact it doesn't say it on the label. Some say, well, if it was good for Kiddush and Dalit Kostas, then put it there. And that's not necessarily true because they're not catering to the small minority. It's a worldwide brand, so that by itself, you can't bring a raya either way from there. The question is the level of mixture. Is there too much water? In other words, I don't have the exact details in terms of what the measurements are, but the question is what's the mixture of water and wine? And that would be the question in terms of you have to get the exact measurement, what the halakha is, then check and have someone. So I haven't found someone who actually did the research. So
in other words, to make sure it's not too dilute.
Yeah, but then the problem would be also it would be a shahako. So it wouldn't be. The number one is again there's two issues. Number one, what bracha do you make on grape juice? Even if you would make a boy agafen, Ceres would be an issue. It could be a bracha. The problem is the bracha of atola. If you make a boy agafen, so actually it happened to me. I was in someone's house Shabbos morning. And they gave me this juice. I said, is this juice good? I mean, they quoted another rabbi. He used it. I said, yeah, so I said, is it not? So, okay,
Wait, Rabbi,
they actually quoted another rabbi. Okay, so I made a boy guffin on it, because I took it. Then I spoke to the rabbi. I said, did you have it? Then he said, no. I mean, he did assume, he does use it. He thought it was good, but he didn't think about the issue I was raising. So I don't know, he wasn't. So in retrospect, I must have had the situation where I would do Shabbos morning. If I had to use that type of juice, I would make Friday night's more of an issue, but it's not an issue Friday night because you wouldn't use it. You could just use matzah if you have to. But I would make a shahako on it because the halacha is if you make a shahako on wine, you yotze. If you make a bori agafen on something which is shahako, you're not. So therefore, mamanashach. If it's grape juice, I'm Yotze, and even if it's Chama Medina, I could use the drink of the town. So I would have made a shahako on that grape juice if the person would have told me that the person. But so reconstituted grape juice for sure shahako, but or many more people say it. But regular grape juice, so Rov Rishonim disagree with Rashi, and that's how we accept the stock of Rav Moshe Feinstein today, and therefore. Unless you're, Talmud of Rav Henkin or someone else, basically, we assume if you like grape juice, you're okay. Every Friday night, you can use grape juice for kiddush. So that's the hilchos brachas issue.
Yeah, I'm just in terms of something that ferments and something that doesn't ferment.
Excellent point. We're going to get to yes, that's what we're going to get to the next. It's going to be one of the issues. Second point is. So Hilchas Brachas we're taking care of, we make a Avodah Pri Hagafen, assuming it's not reconstituted. What about another issue? There's an issue, the Gemara tells us in Baba Basra, what type of wine do you need for Kiddush? The Gemara equates, do you know what type of wine you need for Kiddush? Wine that can be used on Gabi HaMizbeach. Wine that can be used on the libations on the Mizbeach. So, comes along the Rambam, Maimonides, and all you Sfardim out there, he takes the connection very seriously. And therefore, according to the Rambam, every Friday, you can't use grape juice, but you can't use Yayin and Bushel either. You can't use our regular wine, because all the wine is cooked. You believe you can't use Bartanura Muscati for Kiddush right now, according to the Rambam. The Rambam says you got to use good old-fashioned and expensive Yayin She'eno Movushel, wine that is not. Say most of our wine is cooked. It solves a practical issue of a non-Jew touching. And I remember when I was in YU many years ago. I'm not going to say how many anymore, but I don't know, it must have been like 30, who knows. But I remember there's a big thing going on in New York City. I don't know if it wasn't the president or one of the, and it was a Jewish affair apparently, and they called up YU. They were looking for Jewish waiters to serve, because it's a, you know, at $10,000 a ticket, you better serve the good wine, or whatever the amount was. So they wanted it, so they had to get Jewish. That's one of the issues. But the according to the Rambam, to be Yotzi in midst of Kiddush Friday night, you need Yayin She'eno Mevushel. That's the Pesach of the Rambam. What do we do? So Tosfos says, nah, that's not really what the Gemara means. They're not really connecting. It's true, the laws of the Mizbeach, that is true. But all it means is you can't use spoiled wine. This means it doesn't have to have the same characteristics. As long as it's not spoiled, it's okay. So according to Tosfos, wine which we have with the sugar in it and grape juice, so that's not an issue. So again, according to the Rambam, it's not all year round. You can't use for Kiddush. You can't use Yayin. You have to use Yayin She'eno Mevushel. But we don't assume like the Rambam. We assume we don't take the connection of the Gemara literally, and we can use it. In fact, there's a discussion. So Mr. Herzog, you know what Mr. Herzog is?
It's on the wine.
Right. He used to be, at one point, that he was the owner, maybe still is, of Kedem Wine. So he had a couple of chidushim on wine, whether one was, he got into the discussion, whether he was accepted, or that's a separate discussion. Like he wanted to say that this is the question, how high does it have to get to be considered cooked wine? So how high, like in temperature, like what degree? Is it 170, 120? Right. So how high does the degree have to go? So he wanted to say he claimed, again, don't make a concern if you go like the Rambam, maybe he wanted to get some business from the Sfardim, I don't know. He claimed that this wine, maybe he made it only went to a certain level, and it's not considered Yayin Mevushel. You could use it according. Many disagreed because I think he said the temperature had to be 170. We assume it had to be 120. So that was one of his interesting point he made.
You're talking Fahrenheit, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, we're in Canada, right? What else? So therefore,
Vaporize the wine.
and then secondly, he had another chiddush which people might have accepted. He said, so what about, even according to the Rambam, so any wine that has sugar in it is no, you're putting those extra things in it is a no-go. So he had a chiddush where some did like is, obviously, how could you use any wine? Wine has its natural sugar. So his idea was take out the sugar from the natural wines and put it into other wines. And therefore he said that wouldn't be considered mixing other sugars in. He wanted to claim, according to the Rambam then, maybe that wouldn't. So some more people like that chiddush of Mr. Herzog. So, but either way, we don't have that issue. We meaning Bnei Ashkenaz. So we don't have the problem. So we assume we don't take the connection to the Mizbeach literally in that serious. And as long as the wine's not spoiled, good to go. So we're okay. You like grape juice. You like your Bartanura. You like the sugar wine. Go for it. Tofa, no problems. We can use grape juice, and we can use our cooked wine and our sugar wines for Yontif, Yontif and Shabbos. A third issue is some claim that maybe for it to be kosher for Kiddush, it has to have an alcoholic content to it. So some ask on that, but it seems to be against the Gemara, because the Gemara has a case. In fact, I think it was Rabbi Schwab, someone from Washington Heights, was it him or the one before? He said, I don't understand. People, when they go to Japan, China, so what do? You find a box of matzah somewhere, you bring it, but people have a hard time. They can't find kosher wine, so they make kiddush over matzahs. What's the big deal? Go to this, everyone has grapes, go to this store. You can't do it on Shabbos. This is the right to squeeze grapes on Shabbos. Erev Shabbos, squeeze out the grapes, make grape juice, because that's the Gemara. The Gemara says if someone's stuck, the Gemara has the case. One of the rabbis didn't have wine. He squeezed out grapes and he used it for kiddush. So we see that you don't need alcoholic content. So others say no, it's not a raya, because what is the point you were making? And that's Rav Hankins' time also. Why the wine today is why grape juice is a shahako? He said because it's true. Bisman HaGemara, it's true that because what would have happened in that case if you would have left that grape juice? It would have, potentially it could have fermented. It could turn into wine. But today our grape juice is totally different. We go through a chemical change. We do so. Our grape juice can never become wine again. And in fact, that's and anyway, people point out Bisman HaGemara, it was really impossible to have grape juice on Pesach, because whether you're harvesting the grapes during the spring, the fall, so by that time the wine, so Bisman HaGemara you really couldn't even have it anyway. But so therefore, someone at time did know. It's true, but if you take grapes and if you would leave them, they would become wine. Then that type of grape juice is okay. But our grape juice, and that's where Rav Hagen claims it's not chashiv anymore, and that's where you don't make a boy pri hagafen, and only warrants the shahak. And Rav Shlomo Zalman also discusses this, and he discusses, he's mistupik, he's not sure, and he says a couple other things. Maybe our type of grape juice, also that maybe this type of wine or grape juice, maybe it wouldn't warrant our gefen. He discusses the bracha achrona on it. And he discusses also, we know, if we have wine in the middle of a meal, even if we make hamotzi, we make up during the week, we make a boy, because on Shabbos we already made kiddush. But during the week, if we're having a meal and we have wine, we make a new boy pri hagafen. So he discusses maybe on this type of wine you wouldn't make a boy pri. So that's Rav Hankins' time. The grape juice today is different than Bisman HaGemara, and if you would let it needs at least a potential. Again, so we assume not that way. But we assume it's not a problem, because we assume we go ahead and we use this grape. So in terms of hilchas brachas, in terms of hilchas kiddush, in terms of alcohol content, we work out all those issues. We assume it doesn't have to. So that's why all year round it's not a problem of using grape juice. So then so what about kiddush leil Pesach? Would I have any reason to make a distinction in this area between kiddush, because there are many differences between kiddush leil Pesach and kiddush all year round. Maybe I'll mention some after this, but is there any reason what's special about leil Pesach? So it's basically a fundamental machloket. I'll call it the Rav Selevan versus Rav Moshe Feinstein on this issue about using grape juice leil Pesach. Is that a good thing? Is that a positive or a negative? So Rav Moshe feels strongly one should have wine. Even if you don't like grape juice, you should have wine. And even we'll get into it. Another shayla. Let's say a person gets sick from wine. How far do you have to go in doing a mitzvah that you'd be exempt from having the wine? You can have the grape juice instead. But Rav Moshe's chiita is you should have wine. If you can, it's better. You should have wine over grape juice. Why? Because leil Pesach, we need derech cheres. We do many things the night of Pesach. We recline. We act like royalty. And he says royalty, one of the things they do is they have wine. They don't have grape juice. But a king, the people they have, they go and have wine. So he feels, since out kiddush, he's molded, you can have grape juice all year round. That's the psak of Rav Moshe. It's boi pri hagafen. But leil Pesach, it's a din in cheres. How does one show their freedom? He says he strongly feels wine is the preferable drink. And Rav Soloveitchik was asked the same shaila, and he came to the opposite conclusion. He said, what do you mean freedom? Of course, he agrees. Everyone agrees it's derech eretz. But freedom, what do you mean? You're going to force me to have something I don't like? The Rambam says it should be a shtiya areva. The drinking of the 4 cups should be something that's pleasant to you. Chayris free. And if I don't like wine, to force me to have grape juice, that's what kind of freedom is. There seems to be a fundamental machlokes, Rav Moshe and the Rav. This practically, Rav Moshe says you should have wine even if you don't like it. And, how far? Well, we didn't get into what the guidelines are, but if you can, you should have, and the Rav says no. You should, if you want the grape juice, have it. So what's the fundamental machlokes Rav Moshe seems to be what the definition of chayris is, what the definition of freedom is. And in fact, this machlokes is going on in the Middle East for the past couple of years, maybe for always, but especially now, throwing out the new governments, taking in new ones, and they talk about democracy and all that stuff. What is chayris? So obviously that's an open-ended discussion. Judaism has their own view on chayris, and therefore, both aspects are right. Rav Moshe is focusing on chayris as an object. Rav Moshe is focusing on the mitzvah as more of an objective chayris. It's not personal what I like doing. I'll tell you, this is like haseba, reclining. I find reclining very uncomfortable. Maybe I don't know if I'm alone, but I guess because during those days, if you give me the couch and the recliner, then maybe you'll get me. But the way I've got to turn my seat to the left, I put a pillow, and you have to remember. I find it uncomfortable. But yet the halacha is we have to recline. Interesting, the Rav Yah, one of the Rishonim, he claims this reason. He says, today no one, it was during those days people reclined, so we reclined. Today no one reclines, so you don't like reclining, don't recline. We don't pass him like him, but I like it. His svara resonates with me, however, for women it could be different. The more lenient if women don't recline. But
what you're saying is about the meta halacha, and I mean, the thing was written at a time when you ate on couches, right? And we don't eat on couches. I mean, we'd all like to, but there's no room at the table.
No, but I know, but you're right. But the mitzvah is recline. The Gemara says we have to recline. So therefore, right.
But what were they thinking of? I mean, you got to put yourself in a time, place, set. Like, what was the setting that they were? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I like your line of argument.
I'm saying it's the bottom. But so that's obviously the Rabbi Yah feels that's part of the issue is what was built into the mitzvah of reclining in terms of that. We don't. Well, halacha we should have to recline anyway. But I'm just saying but that's part of. We see the wrestling match between the Moshe and the Rav comes up also in Haseba in terms of. In other words, is there an objective definition of freedom? Okay, I'll tell you. This is what. Let's read off the checklist. You better drink. You have to drink wine tonight. You got to do whatever. You got to, and there's a whole checklist. And there is some objective view on freedom, and then Rav Salvation is focusing on the other angle. That no, it's a Shia Reva. Part of freedom is having the ability to choose what you want to do. So obviously, within the realm of halacha, well, I don't feel like having a seder tonight. Let me drop that. So obviously, no one says that. But within the realm of halacha, where there's room to negotiate, and then Rav Salvation felt that grape juice, in that sense, he put the focus more when there's room to negotiate. He felt the shtiya reva, your personal comfort, your personal enjoyment, that overrides the more formal objective, and therefore it seems to be the machlokas, Rav Moshe and the Rabbi. We have in the Chazal tell us charetz al luchos. The luchos, it was engraved that ein tikrach, don't read a charetz al cheres. Who's the free person? Misha osek bator. In other words, we don't believe freedom is like basically being like an animal, just giving in to every whim, design, doing whatever you want. That's hefkeres. That's look into the Middle East. People doing whatever they want all the time. Part of freedom means self-control. You have control. You're the master of your self-control, and you do. It's choosing to do the right thing at the right time, not choosing to do whatever I want to do. That was the '60s with the hippies. You weren't born yet, see? You don't have that excuse. But the point, that was part. And you always have those type of yetzaharas around. But obviously, there's always going to be some friction between the formal obligations and then the more informal ones, which based on the society, we're living in. But that so it comes out. According to Rav Soloveitchik, there's no difference than in terms of Kiddush all year round and Kiddush Leal Pesach. Even the same way grape juice works for all year round, it also works for Leal Pesach. But according to Rav Moshe, that would be a fundamental. According to Rav Moshe, all year round you could use wine, all year round you could use grape juice, but Leal Pesach is especially because of Derech Eretz, he feels you should have wine. And that was another fundamental difference in Haseba, that all year round we don't have to recline when we make the Kiddush, but the night of Pesach, not only are the rabbis concerned with what we drink and how much we drink, but the detail, they're concerned in the manner of the way we do it. And that's, Haseba is another difference. And then, other differences are in terms of how big the cup has to be. In other words, how much you have to drink and who has to drink. That's a fundamental dispute between the Rambam and the Bali Tosas, is does every person, how does it work Friday night? Again, every house is different, but al pi halacha, if you listen to my Kiddush, that's it. My drinking, you don't have to do anything. You just have to listen. I drink the cup. So what about Leal Pesach? Could you just have one person make the Kiddush? I'll watch you drink and that's it. So the Tosas says, yeah, why not? My shna Kiddush kol hashana mi Leal Pesach. Why not? And that's the big Tosas in Arabic Pesachim. The language in the Mishnah is lo yifzachu lo mi arba kol. When you have to get money for the poor, it says lo singular. In fact, we don't have to worry about his family. It's only that seems to be Tosas. Tosas rejects him. That's Tosas' opinion. And the Rambam's opinion is no, everyone has to drink their own 4 cups. So actually, Svarim actually have it in between. Everyone agrees there have to be 4 cups, but not everyone agrees there are 4 brachas. The Svarim only make 2 brachas. They make 1 bracha in the beginning, and they make 1 and 3. And out midine hefsek, they're right. There's no reason to make it. We hold each one. The fundamental machlokas, the Rambam, and the Rambam sheet is it's a chova shtiya. It's the mitzvah and the Daled Kos is everyone has to drink, and therefore everyone has to drink their own cup. Tosas holds it's the same as all. There's no chova to drink per se. The mitzvah is to make a bracha. It's a chova's bracha over 4 parts of the seder. Once you make a boy for a guffin, you're going to have to drink the cup. But so what? If one person drinks, it's not because... So we actually combine both, us B'nai Ashkenaz, because we say we drink the 4 cups, and we also make a bracha. So we take the Chumrah, we take the Tosas, that we make a bracha on all 4 cups, and we take the Rambam, that we drink all 4 cups. But that's a common... But Svardim only make 2 brachas, but we passed in like the Rambam in the sense that we make that everyone has to drink the 4 cups, and we also pass in like Tosas that we make 4 brachas. How much do you have to drink? The Rambam says you have to drink the whole cup, b'di'evet the majority, and Tosas says no, it's the same amount as Kiddush. How much do you have to drink on Kiddush? If you assume a revius is 4 ounces, so 51% of 4 ounces. So there's a big difference, because let's say Kiddush, Friday night, I have a 25-ounce beer mug I'm going to make Kiddush in. So how much do I have to drink? So we passed it doesn't make a difference how big your cup is. You still only have to drink a little more than 2 ounces. So you can use as big as the Ramban sheet is you have to drink Rove cup. But we passed it, no, so we're okay. But Leal Pesach, one has to be careful because we only don't, because we pass them like the Rambam, you have to drink the whole cup, and with Chatzchila, b'di'evet at least 50% or 51% in a cup. So if you have a 20-ounce cup, so it's a chuvra or a kua, depending on how much you like to drink. Mm-hmm. But you have to be careful. You have to be able to. You have to drink over 10 ounces. That's why I recommend make sure you have to get a kiddush cup big enough, but it should be just the amount because you want to do the lechatchila and drink the whole cup. And even the majority, after you get the second, third, and fourth cup, it's harder. So you just have to make sure that the cup holds a revius, and therefore you have to drink minimally the majority, but preferably the whole thing. Those are some of the differences. We had the whole discussion on grape juice, the shahakol issue. We had the issue of hilchas kiddush compared to the mizbeach hanat. We had the issue of alcohol and the question whether the difference grape juice then and now whether it has to ferment or not. And And then we said, and then we had a machlokas. So we passed and you could use grape juice all year round, but it was machlokas for Moshe and the Rav Friday night, whether not Friday night, but Leil Pesach, whether it's preferably used to wine or grape juice, because what's considered freedom, whether it's the objective freedom of the wine like Rav Moshe, or the more subjective freedom of the grape juice. And with the other differences, Leil Pesach, you have to recline when you drink the cup, as opposed to all year round. Also, how much do you have to drink? You have to drink the majority of the cup, the whole cup, versus only the rove revius. And then, according to all year round, you just have to listen to the head of the household make kiddush. That's enough. But Leil Pesach, everyone has to drink. And as well, the last difference, or another difference, is we just moved the clock, and now it's what we colloquially call early Shabbos. As I like pointing out, early Shabbos is every week, because it's a mitzvah Tosefah Shabbos. Yeah, we always break in Shabbos early, but when we mean early Shabbos, we mean after Paga Mincha. So as we know, all year round we make early Shabbos. But the Shulchan Aruch says Leil Pesach we have to wait until nighttime, and so that's another difference. Is we can't make kiddush early Leil Pesach. We can't. This week and the week after, we can make kiddush early. Rav Soli Shel Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos. But when it comes to kiddush Leil Pesach, the Shulchan Aruch says we can't make kiddush early. It's a whole discussion, Magen Avram Taz, what's the pshat in the Machaber, whether it's because why can't we make kiddush early? Well, why should Leil Pesach be different than the rest of the year? So according to the Magen Avram, really it's no, the kiddush isn't the problem. It's that kiddush is one of the 4 cups of wine. And since we learn now that the 4 cups of wine have to be done at night, that's why it doesn't help to make kiddush early. And the Taz says no, it has everything to do with kiddush. You need kiddush b'makam suda. And besides kiddush b'makam suda, meaning you have to actually be in the place where you eat, it means you have to make kiddush at the time where you could eat the matzah. And since you can't eat the matzah until nightfall, you have to start in kiddush b'makam suda. Those are some differences. That all year round we can make kiddush early. Leil Pesach we have to wait until nightfall. All year round one person makes kiddush, or one person drinks from the kiddush. Pesach night everyone has to drink. How much? It's enough all year round just to drink a little over 2 ounces, no matter how big your cup is. But Leil Pesach you have to drink the cup or the majority of the cup. All year round we could use grape juice. According to Rav Moshe, according to Rav Selevan, that's true also. Leil Pesach, according to Rav Moshe, you have to have wine. You should have wine, and all year round we don't have to recline. Leil Pesach, we have to recline. Well, when we drink the wine during the Dalit Kosas.